Welcome to Wellness Fixes the Pod, a by Maven Media production, where we believe you deserve real education from real experts delivered in a way you can actually use. I'm Dr. Kelsy Vick, your board-certified orthopedic doctor of physical therapy, and this podcast was built for the girl who is done feeling overwhelmed and frustrated by conflicting health noise and is ready for something she can actually trust. Every week, we have honest, science-backed conversations about your health, your hormones, your brain, your body, and everything in between. No fluff, no fear-mongering, just the truth. Because understanding your body is the most powerful thing you can do for yourself. A table full of experts built for the curious girl who wants the truth. So welcome. Your seat is waiting for you. And the research is showing that women might get more out of these tiny movement snack breaks compared to men. A study out of Columbia tested different dosages of these movement snacks and found that a 5-minute walk every 30 minutes lowered blood sugar spikes and dropped blood pressure by about 4 to 5 millimeters of mercury. One of the lead researchers even said that this change is similar to the change you might see in someone who exercises consistently for 6 months. The research increasingly suggests that women get a bigger return on a smaller investment compared to men. Have you guys ever heard of movement snacks? I feel like it was a very common trend during COVID times as people were transitioning from in-office work, in-person school to remote work and realizing they were sitting a lot longer. So we started hearing more about the term movement snacks and little exercise breaks throughout the day. And this is one of those things where the science actually backs up this trend. And the research is showing that women might get more out of these tiny movement snack breaks compared to men, which is why I wanted to chat about it today. So welcome back to Wellness Fixes the Pod. I'm your host, Dr. Kelsy Vick, a board-certified orthopedic doctor of physical therapy and a pelvic floor physical therapist. And I realized as I was researching for this episode that as a physical therapist, I oftentimes give movement snacks in my exercise prescription. A lot of the exercise prescription that I give patients has a similar timing that movement snacks do, where I would like a patient to perform something throughout the day rather than all of the repetitions at once. And my reasoning for doing this sort of movement snack prescription for each patient varies. A lot of the time, it has more to do with retraining some of that mind-muscle control and reforming and repatterning certain habits throughout the day. But the research behind movement snacks for blood sugar regulation, mood, energy, sometimes even muscle mass and strength is actually there. So it's not just a physical therapy exercise prescription dosing. So let's define it simply. A movement snack or an exercise snack is a short burst of movement, roughly 1 to 5 minutes, sprinkled in throughout your day. Think a flight of stairs, a lap around the office, a few air squats at your desk, something to get your muscles working and your heart rate up. And as we head into probably one of the most heavy sitting seasons of the year, as summer is winding down to a close and people are going back to school, going back to a normal work routine, I felt like this episode was necessary because not only are we possibly sitting more in the back half of this year, but I also feel like some of us, myself included, might struggle with exercise guilt or health and fitness guilt, especially as our routines start to become a little bit more regimented, and we might struggle with this change to fit fitness and health and wellness and movement in. And movement snacks have been shown to be a great way to benefit you both now in the present, but then also your long-term self in the future. So scientists didn't invent the trend of movement snacks, but they did validate it. A large study of more than 25,000 people who did not formally exercise, they actually called them non-exercisers, found that little bursts of everyday movement, the kind that gets you slightly out of breath, so think walking up a flight of stairs, were strongly linked to living longer. We'll get into that exact study and those numbers later, but the headline is that your body counts the small stuff, not just the 45-minute to hour-long workout. So before we get into some of the science, the research, the tactical ways to incorporate some of the movement snacks, think about a time in your day that you might be able to incorporate slightly more movement, whether that's parking further away, whether it's going to the further coffee machine in the office, or going downstairs in your dorm to get your coffee instead, especially after an intense bout of sitting and studying. Just think about how you might be able to incorporate some of the movement snacks in your day and which ones might be easier snacks for you to grab. So, the most immediate payoff of movement snacks is actually what they do to your blood sugar and your energy levels, which are both closely linked together. Blood sugar stability touches your energy levels, your fatigue, your cravings, your mood, your cycle, a lot of different women's health symptoms, especially when we zoom in through the lens of PMOS or PCOS. PMOS, polyendocrine metabolic ovarian syndrome, is the new name for PCOS. And they're finding that the true root cause of PMOS is a metabolic system issue, not a fertility issue. So, if we're able to address the root cause, that being the metabolic system, and how our bodies are able to regulate our metabolism and our blood sugar levels, we might be able to help some of the other symptoms that are downstream effects of that in conditions like PMOS. So, not only are movement snacks just fun to talk about and fun to think about, but they're also a great tool to have in the women's health toolbox, especially for my girls with PMOS. And if you have any more questions on PCOS or PMOS, we did a whole episode that I'll link below on the name change and why that is a good thing for girls who have the condition and have those challenges and have struggled to get the diagnosis. So I'll leave that episode below. We dive into it in great detail, but just know that the benefits that movement snacks give our blood sugar are amplified in girls with PMOS. So, since blood sugar is heavily tied to things like energy level and fatigue, those blood sugar levels don't just help from a numerical standpoint, but they can measurably lift your mood, your energy levels, and cut fatigue, especially around that 2 p.m. slump when a lot of us reach for caffeine. So, a movement snack might be the movement answer to that 2 p.m. slump before you actually reach for that afternoon latte. Meta-analyses of many studies show that prolonged sitting with brief activity breaks every 30 minutes with 2 to 5 minutes of light to moderate movement meaningfully lowers the blood sugar and insulin rise that comes after meals. A study out of Columbia tested different dosages of these movement snacks and found that a 5-minute walk every 30 minutes lowered blood sugar spikes and dropped blood pressure by about 4 to 5 millimeters of mercury. One of the lead researchers even said that this change is similar to the change you might see in someone who exercises consistently for 6 months. And those same movement snack breaks that benefited blood sugar levels and blood pressure also, of course, positively affected mood and energy levels too. So every time you stand up and move your muscles for a little bit, your muscles act as sponges, pulling the sugars out of the blood and into the muscles, reducing the overall spikes that we get in our blood sugar levels after meals, and making it a little bit more of a smaller, steadier blood sugar curve. So on a heavy desk day, try finding a cue, whether that's an alarm, whether that's seeing your reflection, something that cues you to get up and move around. And if you can time one of those movement snack breaks to be after a meal, your body, your blood sugar levels, your mood, your energy, your fatigue will really thank you. When it comes to movement, the research increasingly suggests that women get a bigger return on a smaller investment compared to men. A 2024 study done in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology looked at more than 400,000 adults and found that men reached their maximum survival benefit at 300 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity a week. Women got that same maximum benefit at roughly 140 minutes per week. Women also saw a larger mortality risk reduction than men from the same amount of activity, about a 24% lower risk of death for women who were regularly active versus 15% for men. The tiny bursts show a similar pattern. In the study I mentioned before, they call it the VILPA or VILPA study, vigorous intensity, lifestyle, physical activity. And as I said earlier, these were non-exercisers, completing about, I think on average, 3.4 minutes of vigorous activity every day. And it showed they had roughly a 45% lower risk of major cardiovascular events and a 67% lower risk of heart failure. On average, just 3.4 minutes of these movement snacks a day. So these are observational studies, and we can't say this causes this, but it's something interesting to note and more of a reason to give ourselves grace, especially if we miss our typical morning workout and might need to rely on some of these intermittent movement snacks throughout the day instead. Quick favor before we keep going. If this show has ever taught you something or made your day a little better, take 10 seconds to leave a review wherever you are listening. Apple, Spotify, anywhere. It genuinely helps other smart girls and mavens find us. And it's the easiest way to support a podcast you love for free. Okay, back to it. So we've talked a lot about cardiovascular health and blood sugar, but movement snacks can also have a muscular system benefit, especially when we're older. Movement snacks aren't going to necessarily change our aesthetics now, especially when we need typically a greater stimulus to create some of those muscle changes, but we still can get the blood sugar benefits and just general activation, balance, mind-muscle control benefits from these movement snacks now. But in studies of older adults, the payoff is even greater. Brief resistance-based exercise snacks, think chair sit-to-stands, and simple bodyweight moves done a couple of times throughout the day, improved real-world strength. One program improved a 60-second sit-to-stand, which is a test that we do, by about 31%, increased leg strength, and even modestly increased thigh muscle size, with very high adherence because it was so doable. Muscle responds to being challenged, and if these movement snacks provide enough challenge for your muscle, you might see some of the benefits of strength and resistance training. However, I feel like for most of us, we might need a little bit more intensity when it comes to getting the effects of true resistance training. So by no means replace your strength training routine with these movement snacks, but they might be a nice addition to your routine if you find yourself short on time throughout the day or are just wanting to get up, move around, and help with energy, mood, and your overall fatigue levels throughout the day. But later on in our lives, when our muscles don't necessarily have the efficiency that they do right now, we might be able to get some of those strength training benefits just from a few of those movement snacks a day. So the whole point of a snack is that it is quick and easy to grab. So let's talk about how to build your actual snack menu. The key thing is to match the snack to the goal. Blood sugar and energy, reach for a walk, especially after meals. Heart and fitness, reach for something that might ramp up the intensity a little bit, something like a stair walk. For muscle, reach for more of those muscle activation activities like bodyweight squats or desk push-ups. There's also research showing that in the evening hours, if you're someone that goes home and sits and watches TV or scrolls, but also has difficulty sleeping, you might get benefit from movement snacks in the evening, breaking up that prolonged sitting. A 2024 study found that breaking up evening sitting with just 3 minutes of light resistance movement every half hour led people to sleep almost 28 minutes longer each night. So think of the 3 to 5 movement snacks that might benefit you or that you might want to incorporate. And if you're like, I just want something to do to give me a little bit of a break from work, maybe pick one from each category. So as we go into this back half of the year where we are a little bit more routine, people are returning to normal work schedules and school, think of the movement snacks, especially as things for your current present health and your immediate health for things like your blood sugar levels and then your subsequent energy levels throughout the workday, but then also for your long-term health and all of the mortality risk reduction, cardiovascular health benefits that you can get from a movement snack, especially if you're someone who realizes that they sit for a lot longer than they'd like to. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you learned something. I'll leave all of the links that we mentioned below, and I will see you guys again on the next episode of Wellness Fixes the Pod. If you like the conversations we have here, then you will love the Smart Girl newspaper. It is my free weekly newsletter for the mavens, the most dynamic dinner party guests, the women whose curiosity does not stop at wellness, but expands into personal finance and investing, entrepreneurship and business, travel and culture, the consumer news worth knowing, and the articles and podcasts worth talking about. A new volume every week, and the link is in the show notes below.